Okay, so we're going to talk about Nancy Guthrie. Now, again, I feel like we're on day 250 of the but of course, we're not that far down the line. I don't know what day it is. Is it about 38, day 38, since Nancy Guthrie went missing? So, Nancy, of course, is the 84-year-old lady, this lady up in the corner here, who disappeared again from her home. So these are the similarities with Gus, aren't they? Both vulnerable for different ways. Gus was vulnerable for his young age. Nancy's vulnerable because she's elderly. But the commonalities are they both disappeared from their homes and nobody knows where they are. Now, the difference with Nancy, of course, we do have, gosh, didn't you think, I certainly did, when these pictures first came out of, the perpetrator house in those early hours of the morning when she went missing, messing about with a doorbell camera, etc. Didn't you think that this was going to be solved quickly or quickly-ish? Certainly didn't think we'd be another 30 days down the line or whatever. And still, really, no further on. We don't really know anymore, do we? Do you think we know any more than we did 20 days ago or when these pictures came out? I don't feel like I know anymore. I feel there's been a lot more speculations. There's been loads of speculation, but I don't feel that we know any more now than we did when these images came out, do we? And then there's the ransom notes that have never been declared genuine or not genuine. As far as we know, they've not been traced back to the people who sent them. No vehicle that we've had identified that the police are looking for. There's been 2 detainments of 2, I suppose, suspects, but they were released. Carlos was released. No charges. Luke Daly, his mum, questioned, detained, house searched. Nothing came of it. Lately, I noticed yesterday there was a lot of talk about Nancy's hearing aids, that she might have hearing aids that you can trace, because I think her hearing aid was left behind, but she may have had a spare one, and then a lot, it was Nancy Grace was talking about it and people were talking about it, but I think if they could have traced her hearing aid, they would have done it by now, personally, so I don't think there's anything in that at all. Of course, she had a pacemaker, so it's thought that the pacemaker might be able to find, but there is technology that can look for pacemakers, but it's quite complicated. Apparently they can detect a pacemaker signal, but they have to, be really close to it to detect it. So it's difficult. So anyway, it hasn't been detected as far as we know anyway. There's rumours she might have been taken over the border to Mexico, because of course Mexico's very close by. There's rumours against her son-in-law, Tommaso. Even yesterday on the social media, people were saying that he'd confess. There's some AI videos going around, like showing false information. You just can't believe it until we get official confirmation of anything, really. You can't believe what podcasters are saying, in my own personal opinion. Because even if they're not the ones making up the information, sometimes I think they show information that's false without checking out that it's actually genuine. So it's a bit of a mess, isn't it? Hey, true crime. Yeah, what is going on with the Nancy Guthrie case? Of course, it was all complicated initially from the sheriff. You know, I think a lot comes down to him. I do think he dealt with things badly. Now, again, rumours, only rumours that the podcaster was saying that his brother died the next day in a nursing home. I don't know if that's true. Maybe he hasn't been completely with it, because of that, if that is true. But definitely, I think what's true about Sheriff Nanos, he is very ego-driven. And he doesn't like the FBI because the FBI investigated him for embezzlement of funds, for misappropriation of money from his sheriff's department the last time he was sheriff, a few years ago. And so he has been out on public record, slagging off the FBI basically. So I do think that he dealt with it badly. So now what seems to be happening, it's like people have got the daggers in for Sheriff Nanos. Now, why would that be? You know, I mean, how many crime cases that we've covered and the sheriff's involved, we don't normally get this total disrespect for the sheriff, even for legitimate, even from legitimate, mainstream media. They're very down on Sheriff Nanos. Nobody is supporting him. That's the thing. It's all right for me as a YouTuber to come out and say, I think Sheriff Nanos is a clown. And I do. But nobody comes back and says, oh, no, he isn't. Why are you saying that? Nobody does. Everybody agrees. There's got to be somebody out there who thinks Sheriff Nanos is good at his job. But if there is, they're not coming out and supporting him, that's for sure. So let's have a look. So apparently as well, he's been sued by somebody else from an unrelated case. Is supposedly somebody's launched a $1 million lawsuit against him for another case. And now people are starting to look back into his past and his credentials, right through his career. Now he's 72, I think. So, he's had a long career. So maybe it's unfair to look back at mistakes he might have made when he was young. We've all made mistakes when we're young. I think if anybody, really looked into your past, whoever you were, they would come up with, it's unusual to come up shining that you've never done anything that perhaps you shouldn't have done, or I'm not talking about murder and things like that. I'm talking about just maybe, I don't know, maybe you've been stopped for speeding, or maybe you've got a DUI, or maybe, it's unusual for people to get 72 and not got anything untoward in their life. But of course, he is a police officer, so, he shouldn't. You are supposed to live by a different set of rules, really, aren't you? If you go into law enforcement, you're supposed to keep your nose clean, aren't you? But anyway, let's have a look what people are saying. Don't know if you've heard about any of this. Where we go. Let's make sure it's sharing. So, lead investigator in Nancy Guthrie case, Sheriff Chris Nanos forced to explain his fudged resume and leaving his first policing job in disgrace. Now, the thing is, you can't, if you're going into law enforcement, you can't be, faking your curriculum. I mean, I think all of us, I expect, if you've ever applied for a job, you tailor your curriculum, don't you? It's like whatever job you're applying for, if they say, I don't know, they want someone with experience in customer service. Now, maybe, you can't lie and say you've got experience with customer service when you haven't, but you might big it up a little bit. Maybe you've got very limited customer service experience, but, maybe at least you've got some. So yeah, you sort of tailor make your curriculum a little bit, don't you? You might say, oh yeah, without lying, Do you know what I mean? You can make things sound better without actually lying, because it's just to get you there to the interview, isn't it? And then if you get to the interview and they start questioning you, you should never lie then, because things can, and that's not lying, like, what's the word, exaggerating something a little bit. So maybe you've got 3 months customer service. So you're not going to say 3 months because it doesn't seem that much. So you're going to say, yes, months of customer service experience. That's not a lie. That's just making it sound better. I mean, that's marketing, really, isn't it? That's what marketing is. Just maybe making things sound better than they actually are. So people think, oh, they've got months of customer service experience. But, months could be 2 months, could be 12 months, so that's not lying on your resume or on your CV, is it? But lying on your CV, of course, is a bad thing to do. But, bigging things up a little bit, everybody does, I think, anyway. So this was him at the press conference. This, of course, is Nancy and Savannah. That are probably quite. So the Arizona sheriff leading the investigation into Nancy Guthrie's disappearance resigned from his very first policing job to avoid being fired over embarrassing blunders. Now, why are we not surprised at that? Oh my God. Do you think that's fancy Sheriff Nanos making a blunder? Gosh, can't imagine that, can you? And he posted a resume online that fudged the dates of his employment. Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos, stepped down from the El Paso Police Department in 1982. Now, let's bear in mind, we are going back 40 years. After racking up a laundry list of infractions, ranging from excessive force, I mean, that's serious, isn't it? To off-duty gambling, to improperly using his siren, and simple tardiness, the Arizona Republic reported. Now, it doesn't surprise me about Sheriff Nanos. I think he would use his position. He's all ego. He's got that little man syndrome. He likes to be Mr. Important King Dick in his office. He is. That's how he's come over to me from the beginning. So it doesn't surprise me. Some people do go, there's so many good law enforcement officers out there who, they try really hard to do their job well and properly. I am not a police, what's the word, I don't put police law enforcement down. But there are some people, unfortunately, are not quite so. Some people go into the police because of the power it gives them. They love it. And that you're always going to get that, unfortunately, and you just have to try and weed out these people. But yeah, it doesn't surprise me about him for some reason, if that's true. Of course, this is what is being said, but is it true? Personally, I think probably it is, because it just confirms what we already thought. But anyway, so these missteps, including an allegation that he kicked a suspect in the head so badly they were hospitalized, landed Nanos with 37 days of unpaid leave in the early 80s and resulted in him finally being told to either step down or get canned, according to the outlet. It just does confirm, doesn't it, what other people have said about him? So this is not a random thing out of nowhere. Other people have come on, remember the union rep and other people that have worked with him, and this is how they've described him. Where's the people supporting him? Saying, no, he's brilliant. You don't see that at all. So he took the resignation option, but he messed up the dates in his publicly posted resume, which stated that he remained with the El Paso department until 1984, 2 years longer than he was there. That is a lie, isn't it? The sheriff's office acknowledged the inaccuracy, calling it another mistake, clerical errors that had been corrected, but Nanos himself bristled and brushed it off when pressed. And he said to because they made a request for information about it, and this is his response: "That's your urgent request? You sure you don't want to go back to my high school and ask why I got swats from the principal? Yeah, I'd like to know why you got swats from the principal. Good luck with your hit piece," he told the Republic. So, this has really peed him off, hasn't it? And that's his. Now, you understand he'd be peed off, but this is the way he deals with things, Sheriff Nanos. This is why he's rubbish, because he's in a position where he could have dealt with that better. He could have either not said anything, though I don't think that would have been a good idea. But to come back and say that, I mean, you should have just said, "I'll cooperate with anything you want to know." If you've got nothing to hide, you cooperate with anything. So the resume discrepancy and eyebrow-raising nature of Nanos' departure from the El Paso police comes as the sheriff has been criticised over his department's search for Nancy. This man has been out of his depth from day one with this case. He just hasn't had any concept of the massiveness of the case. And the thing is, he could have easily just handed it over to the FBI and admitted he was out of his depth. The 84-year-old mother of the Today Show host Savannah Guthrie vanished from her Tucson home on February the 1st. And this has now entered its 5th week with no leads and lots of errors. He's been accused of making confusing and contradictory statements about the case, leaving the scene of Nancy's kidnapping so unsecured that reporters, even pizza delivery men, were able to walk up to the front door. Oh yeah, it has been a total shit show, really, pardon my French. So the lack of suspects in the 5 weeks since Nancy was snatched has also led to criticism. Several persons of interest were questioned, but all were cleared, including a delivery driver who had never even heard of the 84-year-old, and investigators have not identified any real suspects. So then it goes on to say, but Nanos' career hasn't been all a blunder. He led the investigation into the 2011 shooting of, is that Republican, I presume, Gabby Giffords, an attack that left 6 dead and 13 injured, and he's been sheriff of Pima County since 2021 after winning 2 consecutive elections. I didn't realise they were consecutive. He also climbed the department ranks to the top spot after joining as a corrections officer in 1984, following his departure from El Paso. Even in El Paso, his first job in law enforcement, after joining in 1976, he did receive accolades such as Officer of the Year for dangerous work as a decoy to bait drug dealers and violent criminals who routinely mugged him. Okay, so we've got to give him some credit for that. The Pima County Sheriff's Office backed his leadership in a statement after the resume errors were revealed. Sheriff Nanos has dedicated more than 4 decades to law enforcement and public service. Throughout his career, he has demonstrated a steadfast commitment to professionalism, accountability, and the safety of the communities he serves. I mean, the Pima County, that's his statement, isn't it? There's the Pima County Sheriff's Office backed his leadership. But yeah, he's probably written that. But, anyway. He has demonstrated a steadfast commitment to professionalism, accountability, and the safety of the communities he serves, the statement said. As Sheriff of Pima County, he continues to lead the department with experience, integrity, and a clear focus on protecting the residents of Pima County. I don't think the residents of Pima County feel very protected at the moment, but hey, who am I to? So there we go. We've got the positives and the negatives there. Right, I'm just going to read something else. So I just want to go on to the Twitter account of Brianna. Brianna Whitney, we watched the interview she did with Luke Daly, and she's been talking about this because she works for the Arizona Republic, doesn't she? So 17 hours ago, the Arizona Republic asked Sheriff Nanos to respond to their findings that his work history was misrepresented on his resume, and they were sent this. And this is this comment that he made. See, this is what he does, right? He's reactionary, isn't he, Nanos? His knee-jerk reaction. So instead of sitting and thinking about this response and knowing that it was going to be broadcast to everybody, he's just put out a knee-jerk reaction. That's your urgent request? You sure you don't want to go back to my high school and ask why I got swats from the principal? Good luck with your hit piece. It's a totally inappropriate response. He could have done a much better response if he would have thought about it a little bit, but he can't bear criticism, can he? He's a very strange little man, I think. Strange guy. Anyway, so of course it was that interview where he had all those clothes on. So what's this? So PCSD has now issued this statement regarding Sheriff Nanos's resume, but they did not address his personal comments back to the paper. The Pima County Sheriff's Department recently identified 2 clerical errors in Sheriff Chris Nanos's publicly posted resume. Both date discrepancies were administrative in nature and were not intended to mislead or misrepresent Sheriff Nanos's work history. Well, I don't know about that. But for clarity, Sheriff Nanos served with the El Paso Police Department from 1976 to 1982. His service with El Paso concluded in 1982, not 1984 as previously stated. Additionally, he was promoted to the rank of captain in 2007, not 2009. These administrative errors have been corrected and the updated resume can be found here. We'll have a look at that in a minute. Sheriff Nat, and then it goes on with what I read out earlier. Let's see if it's easy to go to the resume. We'll look at that another time. I mean, when you do CVs, sometimes it's hard to remember dates, isn't it? When you have to go back, if you're doing a CV and you're going back to jobs you've had, sometimes it's hard to remember the exact dates, isn't it? It's from years ago. You think, when did I finish that job? Was it 1980 or was it 1981? I mean, mistakes can happen, so we'll give him the benefit of the doubt of that. But I just want to see, before I finish now, if I can find because he's been hit with a lawsuit unrelated to this case. $1 million lawsuit. So he's got a lot of woes at the moment, hasn't he? And he might surprise us all and come up with actually arrest someone and come up with a result in this case. And then everybody, I suppose, will be saying how great he is. I don't know, but oh, it's not doing it. Hang on. It's not playing. The computer's not playing. Yeah. So, Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos named in $1 million lawsuit. According to one, another media thing is saying $1.35 million lawsuit filed. I've got two places saying $1.35 million lawsuit from an inmate, and others saying $1 million. Which one will we go with that you think is? Oh, I'm going to go with Yahoo. So yeah, that Yahoo is saying Newsnight. You can see it. So yeah, he's not having a good time, is he, Sheriff Nanos? And if he would have just passed it all over to the FBI, maybe he would have avoided all this. Because it's the scrutiny that he's getting. He won't feel comfortable with it. Thing is, he doesn't stand up. He's getting the scrutiny, of course. It's because this case isn't solved. If the case was solved, he wouldn't get the scrutiny, would he? So it's his own fault, really, to be honest, because he's tried to take control of the case, but it's all gone wrong. I bet he wishes he would have just left it to the FBI now. So yeah, he's reportedly been filed against Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos by an Arizona inmate seeking $1.35 million. Reportedly, the inmate, Christopher Michael Marks, alleges his life was endangered, and the lawsuit was filed Thursday in the U.S. District Court for the District of Arizona. So he's an inmate at the Pima County Jail. He alleges Nanos and the department violated Article 2 of the Arizona State Constitution, otherwise known as the Declaration of Rights. He alleges his life was put in jeopardy after a sheriff's deputy did not disinfect himself. Sorry, I mean, this is going to be somewhat ridiculous, isn't it? So a sheriff's deputy did not disinfect himself, nor was Sheriff Nanos working to ensure COVID-19 was being contained. Oh, it's about COVID, even though another unit was in quarantine after an inmate contracted COVID-19. I could have died. I don't know if I feel much sympathy for this guy. Well, he shouldn't have been in prison in the first place, should you really? Marks reportedly wrote in the lawsuit, referring to possibly contracting the virus. Marks is seeking the compensation to buy apartments for the unhoused, he says. He desires an apology from Nanos, as well as asking the department to make they properly disinfect their bodies when the deputies are working 2 units at a time, and one of these units is quarantined. Nanos has gained nationwide record. Nancy Guthrie. Authorities do not have any knowledge of Guthrie's whereabouts as the search heads towards day 39. We're probably already in day 39, maybe even day 40. But this inmate, you talk about kicking someone when you're down. This inmate has decided to do this lawsuit and of winning it because Nanos is, he's not exactly known as a brilliant sheriff, is he, at the moment? So maybe that's what will settle with him. I mean, the thing is, whether you've got sympathy for the inmate or not, and I think personally, I think, well, you're in prison and you must have done something wrong to go to give care to their prisoners. Why has he waited all this time? I mean, COVID is 5 years ago now, isn't it? So why has he waited all this time? He's definitely kicking a man while he's down. So we'll see what happens. Maybe the department will, he's making a settlement, because it probably is wrong what they've done. But anyway, you'd have to go to a court case and all this kind of thing. But just thought I'd let you know about that. So apart from being thought of as not very good at his job, he's been sued for 1.3 million. You know, I bet he must dread getting up in the morning. He must be thinking, bloody hell, what else is going to happen? They're sort of scrutinising his CV, his resume, his everything he's ever said and done, everything he's ever done wrong. You know, don't be happy. Seems strange because I think what I've seen from other crime cases we've covered, the sheriffs, you know, the other people, you know, the deputies, like, you know, they support them, don't they, in what they do. I haven't seen this support for now, so maybe I've just missed it. I don't know. So yeah, so it's only update. Who's looking for that little boy? I hope they find him. I hope something breaks in that case. And then we've got this other case, Nancy Guthrie, probably on a day 40 by now. I don't know, I've lost track of the days, but at least day 39, 40. And nobody has been held accountable, despite having the CCTV pictures. And then, of course, we had the 2 detainments, but they came to nothing. So, yeah, will this case ever get sorted? I mean, it will. I really do think it definitely will get solved. But just feel for the family, don't you, of waiting, and of course for Nancy, because if she is still alive, which again, just look, every day that goes past is another day that you think she can't be alive. But if she is, she's going through hell as well. So yeah. Anyway, thank you for watching. I've got to go now, get some breakfast, got some classes today. Busy day today, but I will see you soon in the next video. And until then, as always, may God go with you. Please like, please subscribe. Thank you. Bye.